it'll take a little bit for people to start filtering in, but we'll have fun anyway.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool.
Sounds good.
During the stream, you'll hear us say a lot of thank yous and hellos and stuff like that as we welcome people in, and there's always new followers and stuff. So if we ever interrupt and are saying things that don't make any sense, that'll be why.
I got you.
What's up, everybody? We got Sugar Rush, Ordo, Black Hat Tattoo, our own Monument Philip. Wait, you're supposed to be working. Paint Liquor. It's always fun when the Monument staff joins us during work hours. Slackers.
At least make a burner account. I mean, come on.
Exactly, right? See, even Jamie knows. You get a burner, you show up here and you have a fake name. Flapjack Nickelsack says, yoo-hoo, my pledge manager invite just came in. Well, they're going to be happy about that to know that it's working. I think the testing over the weekend probably kept you guys some sleepless nights, didn't it?
No, weirdly not.
Really?
I had a lot of, well, I don't have any sleepless nights, I suppose, but last week was a lot of just setting up the pledge manager, international tax law, fun time. So no, the weekend was actually pretty chill. We had no issues, none
Good.
whatsoever, to be honest.
Awesome. Touch wood on that one. That was great. The when we were emailing back and forth and you mentioned tax stuff, I nearly had a seizure on my end. That's I can only imagine from you guys' perspective. I'm like, I just want to do cool game stuff. I just want to paint miniatures and make paint. I don't need to know about accounting and spreadsheets. And
it's the slightly less fun side of things, I'm not going to lie.
100%, but the necessary evil, so we speak.
Yeah,
Wad,
exactly,
what's going on?
Exactly.
Cordell, what's happening? Welcome, everybody. We're just going to dig right in. As people join in, they'll start asking questions. Jordan will feed us some questions as chat has them. But as you know, we talked about it last week, chat. We've got Michael Francina and Jamie Parsons here from the Trench Crusade team. Guys, you want to introduce yourselves? Let us know what you do there and what kind of craziness we can expect today.
Go on, Mike. You first.
Sure. I'm Mike Francina. I'm the creator of Trench Crusade. I do all the, or at least 99% of the artwork. And I could come refunds on Kickstarter.
Those unaware, we have launched the PM tonight, so there's a couple of questions and stuff filtering. If you see us like feverishly typing between questions, that's generally what it is. But yeah,
it's not like you guys don't
Jamie,
have a $3 million Kickstarter to manage at the same time as doing all this other great stuff. So
yeah, it's so far, honestly, it's one of the smoother campaigns I've run, so I'm not too I'm not too worried about it. We shall see. All the questions are fairly tame so far. No big mess ups on our end, so that's nice.
Good.
Yeah, so my name's Jamie. Mike does the art, Thomas does the rules, James does the miniatures, and I do all the other stuff, all the boring stuff that actually make it into something you guys can get your hands on. That's me. There we go.
That's the like we were talking about. That's the unspoken important stuff, right? But it all comes together, and you get all these great things. I was surprised. I have to be honest that as soon as Jamie, you and I started talking, he said, "Well, there's only 4 of us," and I was like, "Holy crap!" Because having watched and Mike, knowing that you do, when you say you do 99% of the artwork, right? The artwork for Trench Crusade is what drew me in because it has a fantastic vision. And really just puts this into a bleak perspective. I think one of the and this is going to sound funny, one of the first things I remember really liking about the game is that everybody's shoulders drug a little bit. Everybody had a posture to the characters outside of demons that made it feel like they really wish they didn't have to get out of bed and do this thing today. And it has such an amazing dreariness to it because of that. I'm an artist myself, okay, and so when I look at things, I'm always like looking at anatomy and all of that, and rather than it all being big boisterous space marines with puffed up chests and everybody's ready to go to war, it really seemed like nobody was happy to be in this scene, and and I love it. I can appreciate that. So
yeah, nobody's really like got the super heroic kind of look to them, at least for the kind of grunt guys.
Yeah, it has the feel of can we do something else today, Mom? and that's great. Questions already? Oh, they're just not giving us a break.
Hit me with the questions. That's my life nowadays.
Well, I want to start off though before we get to questions. So you're going to have to do the Lord's work over there, Jordan, and keep tabs on all of them. And because I really want to know, just to kick things off, and I'm sure you asked this a lot, is I know you guys have been working on this for quite some time. Geez, I can remember seeing posts for years ago, but how long has this been an idea? Right, because we know that not all ideas see the light of day immediately, especially not in the gaming world. And what was the thought process behind creating it?
In 2016.
Yeah, so 8 years.
And it just kind of started out. Yeah, and it just kind of started out as an art project after work, because when you go to work and you're designing stuff for other people, everybody's got an opinion, and it's I was working for Blizzard at the time, and they make these giant mass market games, and I was just kind of irritated that it wasn't as dark as I wanted. I was working on Diablo 4 at the time, and so that's kind of where the sort of genesis for this whole thing came from. Was I just want to make uh something just for me. I don't care if it's a mass market anything. I'm just going to put all the stuff I love, like medieval armor and World War gear and weird religious freaks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the genesis of it. I never stopped making it. I kept
Had an
going.
idea and just built
And
on
then
it over the years.
eventually, James Sherrick. Yeah.
Sorry, the delay will kill us. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, and eventually, James Sheriff, he hit me up to see if hey, would you want to make some minis based on your artwork? And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And we did a little Kickstarter for that for about 6 minis, and then after that, because it was pretty good for us. And then we were like, hey, maybe we should make a game. And so James kind of knew Thomas agreed to write the rules and some of the lore and stuff for us as well. So that's kind of where we are today. So we've been working on the game part of it for a couple of years now, and yeah, and it's pretty exciting.
So, as a concept, it started with art first. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's a mix of art and lore, because the way I design stuff, I like to have I don't need a big rich backstory or anything, but at least I need a little bit of something to, to tell a story.
Sure.
So it's not just cool guys. They have a little bit of a story. So that was kind of part of the fun, was coming up with their little lore, blurbs and stuff. And I treated it sort of like Magic the Gathering, that little flavor text on the cards. So it wasn't this super deep, exhaustive lore where every little faction is detailed and who leads the fact. It wasn't like that. It was just kind of these little blurbs, just to kind of enrich the artwork and to give me something to kind of help design the characters and stuff. So
sure.
And then when Tomas came on, he helped flesh that out, because I'm not really a writer. I can come up with ideas and stuff, but I can't write very, very well. So Tomas has been really helpful, expanding all this stuff and coming up with new shit and all that. Sorry, I don't know if we're supposed to swear.
Oh, it's fine. No, and it what a horrible kind of matchup to find Tomas in this journey, right? You couldn't have done a whole lot better with wanting somebody who could develop a world around your stuff too. So that's fantastic. How did all that come about? Did you already know him? Was that something that came through the relationship with James?
Yeah. So James was he's part of the 28 Meg crew. He was an editor and layout guy for them, and so they would do these Tomas at some point, and James had probably talked to him at some point. I'm not sure exactly, but that must have been where they sort of met. So he approached Tomas, and then he actually said yes. So it was kind of surprising for me anyway.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome because with the background and the Mordheim world and the things that Tomas's name. I worked at GW back in the early 2000s, and that was a known quantity. When I
Okay.
found that he was working on the game, I was like, well, that's gonna be not horrible. Just for world building and game ruling is awesome. So it gets you jazzed as a nerd, right? You have your little fandoms, and
Yeah.
that people have done great stuff in the past. So what a better way to hit it with your first time out of the gates. Now, had you said you were doing the Blizzard thing, doing the Diablo 4 thing. So had you been in video games? Had you ever done other tabletop work prior?
Yeah, I had when I first started out as the artist, I really low budget kind of RPGs and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I did some work for Green Ronin, who used to make they used to make Warhammer, the Warhammer role playing game,
Yep.
and I would just work for like really low budget companies like that, where um, but eventually I got hired at on Warhammer Online, which was by EA,
Yep.
as a concept artist, and that's kind of where my career really kind of like kicked off, because you learn really fast, because you work with so many like super talented artists, and it just kind of like boosts your learning speed.
Sure. Yeah, bigger teams will feed that a little bit better, right? Because you get to watch how the vets do it, I guess.
Yeah, I had done some oh, go ahead, concepts for Privateer Press for their War Machine game a
Really?
while back as well. So I have some like minor. Yeah, it was I don't remember. I remember one thing. It was a Crix Warjack, I think. I don't remember the name of the Warjack, but I had a weapon called the Vivisector, which always kind of stuck in my head because it's a very cool name. But I don't
Oh,
remember
man.
specifically.
You know if it was one of the named Warjacks or not, like one of the character ones? I used to work for Privateer Press. I used to paint
I'm
3D
not
models for
sure.
them for a while.
I don't
Oh,
think
okay.
it was. I think it was
Yeah.
that crazy. I think it
Oh,
was that
cool.
crazy humpbacked one that had the vivisector. It's like one of the more insectile looking ones. The yeah, Jordan is one of the old Privateer Press studio painters.
hmm
We met through the whole world of
Cool.
War Machine, so we're very
Yeah, I had
familiar.
designed. I'm trying to remember what I designed. Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, I love War Machine. It's such a cool looking game. Um, I love the Warjacks, and they
Yeah,
have a lot of really cool characters. They have like the Pistol Wraith. Is that that's a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Pistol
Yep.
Wraith. Yep.
Yep. The
Yeah, that guy's so cool.
Yeah, they have. That was another world that grabbed me immediately through
Mhm.
the visuals because it had such a different thing than again. And I'm not bagging on 40K guys. Everybody knows. While I may not play it, I'm a big lover of Space Marines and such. But as grimdark as that whole world was created in, it does have a look that is not as. I mean, Space Marines are Space Marines, right? There's a lot of repetitive, lots of armor, lots of guns. Um, and then when you find something like the diesel punk, I guess we'll call it, of War Machine, really stood out to me
It's got a
because
very
it just had a different feel. And I don't know what it is. I never would have thought that I'm a guy that's really intrigued by World War kind of nuance and more World War One than two, because I was a big World War II model builder. And have built my fair share of ground forces from all over World War II. That's one of my loves. But in my what would we call it? In my escapism, I think I never really thought that I would go back to that, like fantasy and sci-fi. And yet, I think with Trench Crusade, one of the biggest things is that definitive early 1900s, mechanical feel to it. But then, strapping it on the lore of the Crusades never having ended, and this mass heresy or great heresy by some Templar who decided to fly the other side's flag is tremendous to me because it kind of marries a bunch of really neat, knightly order and that time that some of us romanticize more than it probably should ever be romanticized, in together with this brutality of the more modern 20th century war style, which is actually really cool.
Yeah, I find myself drawn a lot to games that have a very, very distinct like style, both in the art and the minis and the way that the universe and the world is depicted. And like it's one of the things that really drew me to Trench Crusade as well, because like I didn't know anything about it. My buddy was like, "Hey, you should check this out." And Jason, the funny thing is, Jason also mentioned to me on the same day. He's like, "Hey, you should check this out. It's really cool." And I was
It
like,
was the
"This
day the
is awesome."
Kickstarter went live. I was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, this really cool Kickstarter went live. You should go check it out."
Yep.
And yeah,
So-
I think it was very timely.
Yeah, very timely.
For me, it was very timely because I was in that rut of, I need some new minis and some new ideas, and then this popped off, and I remember the last Kickstarter with and I want to say they were communicant snipers or something, the big tall guys. What do you call
Oh,
those?
those are cool.
Those are the anti-tank communicants.
Okay, yeah, some of the coolest models ever, and yeah, so I was
Nice.
super jazzed to get more, right? Because as many people as I've seen who have done some stuff on like Cults 3D and the various other independent sculptors that have brought some stuff out, and then of course all of the conversions over from Warhammer and various other lines, to see the artwork. Well, like the guy in my hands right now, the Shrine Anchorite, to see this kind of stuff come to life in an actual miniature that I can hold and paint is I mean, that's still what draws me back into why I'm even in this hobby. Is to, when I first saw this picture, I was blown away. And then when I looked on the Kickstarter and, there it was in physical form and pretty darn close to the original artwork, if not spot on, I was sold, And then, mad barefoot dudes running through mud with ready to jam you with bayonets is like, I didn't know I needed this in my life, and I'm so happy it exists. So this is my stuff.
Yeah,
so.
well, and Wilf, the guy that sculpted that is this guy named Wilf, and I think he did a fantastic job bringing it to life.
That's Diverging
It has like a
Realms,
real
Wolf,
nice,
yeah?
like meaty feel. Yeah, Wilf Diverging Realms. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic sculptor.
Do we want to tackle some of these questions? Start scrolling through these real quick.
I
do some
want to
rapid
know,
fire?
before we go through questions, I
Okay.
want to know what got Jamie involved. How did you get pulled into all of this, Jamie?
So basically, I've done. Well, I've played miniature games for as long as I can remember. I think I started back at Warhammer 3rd or 4th edition, 40k, and I was fortunate enough to fortunate. I came out of my my education, like university education, into a recession, which is always fun, and basically sort of converted into gaming somehow. I'm not quite sure how I managed it, but I've done a lot of Kickstarters for the past 10 years. I've been involved in some other big projects outside of Trench Crusade. And basically, I was scrolling through some social media one day, and I saw Mike's the Trench Shrine piece that he did. And I was like, that's a banging piece of 40k art. And then looked at the shell and was like, that's not an Imperial Eagle, that's a Jeebus. What's that doing there? What is this? And that just sent me down the rabbit hole. I was like, wow. Ended up on the Discord, ended up looking into the game and such, was intrigued. And then I saw that they were running a Kickstarter, or had plans to anyway. I was like, this could be fun. And then, a couple of months later, a few more bags under the eyes and $3 million. And here we are.
A few more bags under the eyes. Welcome to it, right? It never changes.
No, this isn't my first rodeo.
Yeah, well, yeah, then that's a good thing, right? They got somebody who's at least seasoned, who can face that pain on the front lines, which is great. Yeah, let's grab some questions, Jordan.
Oh, well, I mean,
All right. I'll hit some
There
of
you go.
these that are rapid fire. These should be pretty easy to go through. Starting off, we've got Derelictor here says, "Oh man, that mini is cool. What faction is that from? Is that it from the Trench programs?"
This is all Trench Pilgrims. I have been
Jason.
working on
Mhm.
the. This is so. How to put this? If you've been watching over the last week or two, as we've started in on these are the, I guess we'll call them early release of the Kickstarter models that Jamie was kind enough to send over. And I immediately said, if I could get Pilgrims, I'll love you forever, because it's odd that a game has every faction speak to me. I'm a very hard to please individual when it comes to artwork, because as a painter who's painted for over 45 years, it really has to be something that's like, ooh, I'm a tremendous rule of cool guy. I don't play enough games to care about what the meta is or who rolls the most dice anymore. That's long gone in my past. Now it has to grab me, and I don't care what it plays like. I just want to paint those models. And the entire range of Trench Crusade is that, right? It basically is all one long faction for me as I scroll through all the models and stuff. It's just some happen to have demons in them and others don't. And so they just all speak to me in a way that makes me want to paint every single model. And so when I jumped on the Trench Pilgrims, it was because of things. I mean, specifically like this, right? The stigmatic nuns, who take that idea that they start to form the stigmata and bleed, and this particular one in the artwork that is topless has the blood coming out of the eye sockets in the helmet and drenching the chest. And I was like, I need to paint that. I hope they make a model for that. And then it was there, and I'm like, okay, that wins. And then, like I said, it was this. This is the Shrine Anchorite, which, any massive dreadnought looking thing is going to get my attention anyway. A special one that actually has like a church spire for a head. There's one of the faithful locked inside of it, like an Iron Maiden with spikes and hooks that are grabbing his flesh so that he can endure the same pain that Christ supposedly did as he marches this bastard across the battlefield and smacks people with a wheel, right? So, just the little bit of lore, as Michael said, that kind of flavor text at the bottom of the Magic card was enough to grab me, along with the artwork that he created for it. And then when it was made real, I was like, yeah, okay, we're doing this. And I was like, I'm just going to paint them quick, because if I have to paint 6 armies because they all appeal to me, we're just going to go for it. And so that's what we're doing here. So we've got all of I've got a heck of a warband. I don't think I can use all these models that we printed out because it gets too expensive. We'll probably talk a little bit about gameplay as well, but the models themselves, it's more of a what would we call it? I dread to say a campaign-ish game, but it really is. It's a game where you buy your army list in ducats, you spend money to put your warband together, and then you have to buy equipment, and you gain and lose favor and valor and all these things as you play the game, and have to replace dead people and things of that nature. So, but it also has a point system for just playing one-off, which is really cool. So it kind of is an everyman's war game, especially the everyman that doesn't want to paint 100 models. So I'm a big fan of painting like 10.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really cool too, for me at least, to interject here really quick, is that when I was reading through the rulebook, it became very clear to me pretty quick that like it is definitely to some extent intended to be played as a campaign game. Like the initial rules that you read for the game are campaign rules. It's not until later on in the rule book where you start reading through the like, here's how you play a regular game. This is the suggested point value, which I think is really cool. I think it's great to be able to not only have both, but to make kind of campaign the forefront of the intention of how you play with your friends, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, if you want to
Yeah, I
keep
think,
it going, I like the idea.
The idea.
Sorry, Michael, go for it.
I always loved like, the idea that between battles, your crew, had these like desperate last stands, and Ralph got his foot blown off, and now he can't move as fast, and little things like that. I love that
Poor
stuff.
Ralph.
To you.
He got his foot blown off. Oh, it's great.
Oh, it's narrative gameplay.
Yeah,
yeah,
which is in itself a lot more fun But for me anyway. And I'm someone I play a lot of Age of Sigmar, like also tournaments and such with the team. And as much as I do really like that game, painting armies worth of miniatures, it gets real tiring real fast for me anyway. I'm not a fast painter as standard. I'm not a fast painter, and I don't like having to paint the same model 20 times.
Yeah.
So when they re-released Skaven, I was like, I love Skaven. They're one of the best things Games Workshop has ever made. But I cannot paint. I physically cannot paint this. I will kill myself and anybody else in a 5-kilometer radius if I have to do this. So yeah, it's that kind of thing. But I do love Warcry, for example. The new version of Kill Team is really good. Anything where you can kind of boil the game down to, obviously, my personal taste, please do not come for me. It's anything where you can really boil it down to 5, 10, anywhere up to maybe 20 minis. I was a big fan of Infinity. I still am a big fan of Infinity. And they're like, nowadays it's 15 models max. Well, sorry, 15 orders. It can go above a couple of models, shall we say, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, something where you can just kind of concentrate on the flavor of the miniatures, the conversions, the painting, just have fun with it and not be under the gun of needing to paint 100 miniatures for a deadline, almost, as it were. Less so if you're not like competitive gamer or anything like that. But yeah, plus when you can really put some effort into each individual miniature, and then you can take it to a game where it's like, okay, well, this dude here, he got shot in the head. He's still alive. We're not sure how, but he's in there somehow. You just kind of combine the two together, and it makes for a much richer gaming experience, shall we say, in my opinion. Once again,
I'm 100% with you. I'm right there, because I think that what I found myself doing is, like you said, with Skaven. Some of the armies I want to play, I love orcs. So I'm a big orc and goblin guy. Coming from Warhammer Fantasy, I loved painting big bricks of orcs for some reason because they were so fun on the battlefield. But the time it took would wear me out. And it got to the point where I found myself just playing what were more elite armies because they had fewer body counts. So you were playing guys that really either were they were one of two things. They were either ultra meta lists that were hard to beat, right? Like in 40K playing Custodes, where you only had to paint 12 dudes, but they acted like 100 on the battlefield, or they were horrible to play because they just couldn't be everywhere and do everything the game required you to do. And it always made me feel bad. So I'm a big fan. You mentioned Warcry. I'm a big fan of Warcry. I've only played one game, so I can't say I'm a huge fan. People call me out. I played one game where I painted exactly 5 models. I painted the...
You painted the heck out of those models, though, Jason.
I did paint the heck out of those models, but it was the what are they called? Jen calls them the Maw Pack.
Oh, yeah. We had a weird name for them that was not correct, but it was...
It's ogres, basically.
Yeah.
So the painting a bunch of ogres was always really cool because it was like 5. I could play a game with 5 models. So I respect the Trench Crusade mentality of, I think when I was doing a 900 ducat list for one-off gameplay, I could pretty much play with my entire team, which is like 15 models. And that to me is perfect. That's like, it makes me still love the idea of painting them. It doesn't seem like an uphill climb the whole time. I can paint them on stream, and hopefully stream doesn't get bored, because this is, fortunately or unfortunately, probably the best and only time I get to paint my models is in front of a live studio audience. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that most of these, even when I put out 8 or 9 regular pilgrims on the board, they're all unique enough in their look that I think they're going to be so good looking together that it'll be fun and easy to go through. And then I get the castigator and the individual characters that not only are the sculpts really cool, but just the flavor of the model tells a lot different story per model. They're not all identical. And again, they all have like loud speakers attached to their backs and are preaching the faith as they go across the battlefield without shoes. So again, win. I like crazy fanatics.
We got another question here. Jamie might have a good answer for this because you've played a lot of Warhammer games over the years. Dudogo is a first-time chat, so welcome. Thank you. Sorry, it's been taking us a little time to get through this. We got a lot to talk about today. So this Dude Ogo says, I play Thousand Suns and Imperial Knights in 40K. what factions would you suggest to me in Trench Crusade? I've glanced at the page, but haven't done a deep dive yet.
Ooh, or the seven-headed serpent, without a shadow of a doubt. A, because big models, so knights, and B, because magic. There you go. That's easy. Next question,
Sweet.
please.
That
was
was
kinda
easy.
my
Next
thought.
question.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that like I was like, oh no. I am more or less up to speed with 40k, though Kill Team is the most 40k I do at the moment. And I was like, oh no, am I going to get the genres wrong here? But no, Knights plus Singe.
Yeah.
No, it's called the Seven Heads.
I figured it. Knowing what I knew, I figured it was a pretty softball one for you. One question. We got another one from Scientologist. We got one question I had today. Looking at the backer kit, will digital options continue past the Kickstarter? I think this is asking if the digital pledge options are available on the backer kit to purchase separately. I'm pretty sure that's what the question is asking here.
Yeah,
like
basically anything that you saw on the Kickstarter can be late pledged. It's the same price. There's no exclusives. We don't like FOMO, that kind of stuff here. So yeah, it's all there.
Great.
And tell me, help me understand. Like once, and this leads us into kind of the rabbit hole of post Kickstarter, moving into that next step. Do you guys have plans you can talk about with regards to if I find this because my friends who bought on the Kickstarter are all playing it at my local game store and having a blast, and I want to get in on it, but late pledge is over, Kickstarter's over. What's the intention down the road? How will I become a Cult of the Seven-Headed Serpent, collector 6 months from now?
So we do have plans. We did have plans, but the plans were for a smaller level of success, shall we say. They weren't. We weren't expecting this. Thankfully, everything scales for delivery, but yeah, it does. I mean, we talked about this a lot during the campaign, how it's a serious amount of money that does change lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is always going to be a Trench Crusade going forward out of Kickstarter. We were never going to remain like a Kickstarter only company like you do sometimes for board games and that kind of stuff. There was always the intention of selling the STL files through my mini factory and then the physical miniatures, through Only Games. That was always the case. We always wanted to do more models, more rules, that kind of thing. If you followed the Kickstarter, we basically rolled the plan for the next campaign we had into this campaign. So like a big narrative campaign. For those of you that have played like the big map-based Mordheim one that Thomas wrote a while ago, and any of his other works, in fact, that he's done for Games Workshop. So at the moment, obviously, priority number 1 through 10 is delivering the Kickstarter. That's going to take us up to the summer of next year, with a little luck. And after that, yeah, we do want to start rolling out new stuff, because we covered the main 6 factions in this Kickstarter, but we haven't done all of the mercenaries, and we haven't done any of the sub factions, and there are currently 3 sub factions for each of the main factions. So there's a lot to be going on with without even writing new rules. These are rules that have been out for months, years now. But it's like the Prussians for New Antioch, the House of Wisdom for Iron Sultanate, all that kind of thing. So we're going to start rolling into that. The miniatures will always be for sale on Only Games physically, and the digital files on MMF. That's staying. That's not going to change. So in a couple of months' time, once everything is delivered, if you want to get into Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent, it will all be there. Nothing is exclusive to the campaign, nor will it ever be, as long as I'm here anyway. And yeah, after that, we have a lot of things to take into consideration. Hard plastic was never something we were considering, given the scope of the game and the project, as it were, the company. Now we kind of have to look into it. That doesn't mean we will do it. We've got to see what works best for Trench Crusade, for us, for growing the company in a sustainable manner. Sorry, a lot of business speak here, but long story short, I've seen a lot of companies shoot themselves in the foot by getting too big too fast based off of one big success, whether it's on Kickstarter or anything. or something else, sorry, and that's not sustainable. One big success does not mean 10 years worth of cash flow. And sorry, I know you guys did not tune in to hear me talk business, but that's what we have to consider in order to be still providing Trench Crusade in 10 years' time. So this is why we froze all the stretch goals after 1 million, because we couldn't keep going, or we would have worked ourselves to death, kickstarted ourselves to death, as the effect is known. So yeah, no, we do intend to make it very easy for people to get their miniatures. Retail, we get a lot of questions about that because you mentioned friendly local gaming stores. We do want to see Trench Crusade in retail stores. Obviously, this is going to come as a surprise to no one. 3D printing is more expensive to produce per unit than plastic miniatures.
Yep.
So we have to figure out how to make it worth it for us and for the gaming stores. But that's basically me once I've finished everything to do with the Kickstarter, which should be hopefully soon, and can look more to the future, as it were.
That's fantastic. Awesome. No, and don't worry, we actually speak quite a bit of business around here, just with the business of gaming and how it affects, your favorite game and why you see changes.
Obviously.
It's funny, right? Because our industry is very tied together, since so many of the companies that put stuff out can be very small. They can be garage companies. They're not all Mattel and Hasbro and untouchable. So much of our industry is reach out, talk to the creators like we're doing right now, which is fantastic. As everybody in chat knows, as one of the owners of Monument Hobbies, we've been streaming live for 9 years and are never afraid to tell you why we do what we do the way we do it, because we think a lot like you guys do, that it has to be sustainable, because our whole goal here is to be part of this great community, and just doing a one and done launch and having it disappear doesn't fulfill that need. So appreciate the answer. That was good stuff.
Speaking of Jason.
Yeah.
Speaking of 9 years.
Oh God.
Guess who hit 99 months?
99 months of subbing to our crazy channel?
Yeah, Mo.
That's not possible, Mo.
Mo's Magic hit 99 months.
That's insane. So
that is crazy.
We have what we call the Liars Club here, Mike and Jamie. And the Liars Club is filled with people that have been here so long that we know they're lying, because nobody could possibly like us that long. It's just not possible. So, and Mo is one of those. Subscribed for 99 months. Mo, thank you so much. That's incredible. Absolutely insane.
Cool.
90. I can't even count to 99, so that's a feat. After I just said I run the business, that's probably not looking good.
Yeah, Jason, that's not something
not the best look.
Yeah, let's stay away from that one. There's a lot of love in here for your cat, Jamie.
Which one? The gray one.
The gray one, yeah.
Plug it up somewhere. Yes, that's good. He might be back later if he wants to play with his ball. He might be back later.
Let's see.
My students aren't making it here, currently asleep. So, cats.
We have another question. Which units might have aspects or traits that have... Hold on, I'm trying to actually see this. Oh, there we go. Which units might have aspects or traits that have some historical basis but aren't obvious, like the Anchorite's wheel? Did you guys use a lot of historical backstory and stuff for creating the rules? And, I mean, it sounds like you did from...
Oh my God, good thing Thomas is here. He would absolutely obliterate you with this question. Yeah, go on, Mike. This one's for you. I can hear Thomas screaming from Finland right now. That
almost everything has a... almost everything has at least a little bit of a historical basis. For instance, the the Trench Pilgrims are sort of based on the People's Crusade. These sort of like kind of just like random civilians who decided to like march down to the Holy Land, and they never really made it. They kind of got distracted by looting and pillaging along the way, and fighting amongst themselves, and so that was kind of their inspiration. It's all very kind of loosely based, but there is some like more some of the stuff, especially when Tomas writes it, he's like more into history than me, or he knows a lot more about it, and so he'll really tie it in a lot more like accurately and stuff. But for me, it's always like a jumping off point where like a lot of stuff in history, like you'll read it in a book, like a history book, a nonfiction book, and it's like hard to believe sometimes that like that actually happened. You know, I read this book about an executioner in 16th century Nuremberg, and the book is called The Faithful Executioner. It's really interesting because it was based on like the historian who wrote it. He had the guys like journals and stuff, and so like it actually kind of read more like a novel almost, but it was like a, you know, it was really, it like really happened. And there was all this like crazy stuff with executioners where they were sort of outcasts, so they couldn't I don't know if you guys are going to find this interesting, but it's really cool. But they were like these outcasts that they couldn't like marry into like normal families. So these executioner families would marry their children to each other. So they had these like weird executioner dynasties.
Weird.
And there was all these like crazy beliefs where like, yeah, the people believe like the executioner's blade could perform exorcisms. And to become a journeyman exorcist, you had to like take this test where you had to be able to completely burn a body to ash, and like a lot of times they would also be sort of like doctors because they were somewhat familiar with like anatomy and things, so they would make extra money on the side, like healing people and things. So it's just kind of like little interesting tidbits that like crop up.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
like, for my own experience with Trench Crusade, like, well, like choosing a faction in Trench Crusade anyway. I remember finding the original art and then going through. I can't remember what I saw. I think it was the HM, the heavy machine infantry. I was like, that's pretty sick. And then it was the Ubazi captain with his little harpy thing and the gun lance, gun halberd, and I was like, oh no, well, I'm done for, aren't I? And I like history. There's if you guys know of the channel, there's an excellent YouTube channel called Extra History, who does like animated rundowns of big historic events, battles, that kind of thing. And there is one on the siege of Vienna where they talk about like Janissaries and how badass they were, and trench warfare and that kind of thing. So when I saw that in Trench Crusade, I was like, oh, that's rather cool. And so you already make a link there. And then I started seeing things like you see a lot of the big swords in Iron Sultanate. They have like these twin tongues at the end. And I didn't think any of that, but I remember talking with Thomas not long after starting on the project, and he was like, no, that's a thing. That's an actual thing. That's how they were designed, because they are the twin. Or Mike, you might have the exact reference to this one, why the swords have like two tongues on the end.
Oh, I don't recall exactly why, but I know it's like,
yeah,
it's a blade.
There is a reason.
I think it's related to Muhammad or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tom, once again, if Thomas would hear, we get a 50-minute explanation about this. It is very interesting, though. So, yeah, it's quite deep, and sometimes you're like, oh, well, actually, speaking of Thomas, he always says we don't need to make weird shit up. History has already done that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to make it a little bit weirder. But I mean, if you've seen the accessory sprues for the Iron Sultanate, there's a giant spoon. Go and look up giant spoon in history, and you'll see. They don't need us to stuff. They really don't.
I was going to say that it Trench Crusade feels like a solid thumbs up to the fact that truth is stranger than fiction, because as you read in, whether it's the history in the biblical sense, right, and all of these things that were happening, and then you look at history in the time of the Crusades and the Crusader states, because there were 4 Crusader states. The Principality of Antioch was the big one, and that, of course, is what we have as New Antioch in the game. So you have the Iron Sultanate that has the wall rising up to protect them from, I guess from the heavens or whatever, is pretty amazing. But it is taking what feels like, if you could be teleported back in time, it really only took Templars to go commune with devils for any of this to happen. Like it feels like it starts from a point of reality almost.
Yeah.
And then something happens that didn't really happen, or happened in that other timeline. Thank God. Because no matter how bad the world is, I'm glad I'm here and not there on this wheel, because that would probably be me strapped to the wheel right now, right? But yeah, so it has a sense of everything being fairly well rooted. I think if you enjoy that, there's a lot of fantastical, but even the fantastical stuff draws back to, like named demons from hell. You have the Beelzebub and the Lord of the Flies and the things like that give it some, even though that's kind of extra planar history, if we want to call it that, it ties in well with the mythos around the whole Christian and Muslim theology. It's really neat.
Well, so this is actually kind of digging into a question that I had, because I was going through and I was reading through the Death Commandos lore, and I noticed that there's reference to Tartarus and the River Styx, which is out of Greek mythology. And I had only ever heard of the, heaven and hell sort of. So, like, how does that play together in this universe? Because I read it and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I had not noticed this before.
I feel like there's certain touchstones that people are familiar with, and it's useful to like apply those to the setting. So people know that there's a river in the underworld called the River Styx, and they know the River Acheron. So I think it's useful to apply that instead of making like a new name that doesn't mean anything. You could call it like whatever, and like no one would. It just wouldn't mean anything. So like by using these pre-existing names, you're like tapping into all this other history. So it's just worthwhile to use these things.
I think it's great because you wind up with, and I'm one of those that, you'll get me down a rabbit hole of like ancient astronaut theory, and that all these cultures have these mythos and theologies that stem from the same thing happening in history, but their interpretation might have been different. And so you get stories of the river Styx in one culture, but you get another river or another boatman, or a turtle whose back you have to ride on to cross over to the other side. You have all these tangible parallels. And so I like the way it brings those together in the game to make it to where, oh yeah, maybe all of these do coexist, and it's not just, what book you're reading at the time.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting when I was reading through it. Let's see here. We do have another good question here. Is there a target play time for a round of the game? This person, Source, particularly struggles with games that are drag on and on and on. So, what can players expect from a gameplay perspective on time for rounds, time for turns, things like that from Trench Crusade?
So that really depends on. So we're going to talk like a standard game here, 900 ducats. That's like, should we call it match play levels? You're going to be around 10, 12 models, maybe a bit more, a bit less if you want to go elite or more hoardy. Also, Trench Crusade can either be played on 3x3 or 4x4. I personally prefer 3x3, just because I like the action to heat up immediately. But talked about Infinity back then, 4x4 tables. There's plenty of action to be had from the first rounds there. It does give certain types of weaponry more of a chance to shine. But no, a game of Trench Crusade, obviously, I'm not talking the first game, the first couple of games, once you guys are getting to grips with the rules, that kind of thing. Normally somewhere between 90 minutes, I would say. 90 minutes to 2 hours, really depending on if you go all the way. You've got a lot of fights going on, a lot of dice rolls to resolve all that kind of thing. I'm really talking quite extreme here. 90 minutes would be a pretty good estimation for me.
Cool. I think that's a pretty good standard these days, right? Is for an entire game to be played within about an hour to an hour and a half seems pretty reasonable.
Well, one of the cool things with the way the rules are is that even though there's scenario gameplay in the rule book, they set up some really nice scenarios. They have a random scenario generator that's fantastic, so you can create your own, even if you're not necessarily don't consider yourself good at coming up with scenarios. It has a way to take all of the functionality that they've put into it and bake up your own scenario. So there's nothing that says you couldn't say, well, I want to spend fewer ducats and create a smaller warband. I want to have 3 models go out on a 2x2 and put some terrain out there and play it. Once you get the hang for the rules are really built around the experience more so than the tournament gameplay perspective, I think is fair to say. Would that be fair, Jamie?
Not a tournament game. Well, sorry, no. Let me roll that back. You could technically play it as a tournament game. I like wargaming tournaments, mostly because it gives you a good experience to go out, meet new people, drink beers, get the shit kicked out of me generally. But I like it for that aspect. Afterwards, there are some negative aspects to it as well. But Trench Crusade, before it can get to that level, we would need to do like a sort of competitive rebalance, because there's a lot of thematic rulings like certain enemies being immune to gas weaponry or fire or that kind of thing, because, you know, they're demons. Of course they're immune to fire, but you can't really rock up at a tournament scene where everything is immune to flamethrowers. That wouldn't be very cool. So there's a couple of things to do there. In the meantime, yeah, it's much more narrative-based game, much more focused on the storytelling through the gameplay than it is the competitive aspect. You don't need to win or lose every game to still win the campaign. It goes a little bit further than that. There's all of your warband management and like especially with the Carcass Front, which is the big narrative campaign that we unlocked during the Kickstarter, the second Kickstarter that we smushed in there. Yeah, there's a lot of tactical choices to be made there about your base building, your resource management, who you fight, where you fight them, that kind of thing. So it's not just I need to go out and table every time. It's more I need to go out and this guy has to duel that dude. Like I talked about Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent earlier. There's a thing in the court called the Wretched, which are basically humans who get captured by demons or sold to them. And they have a very fun rule where if they take out an elite or elite or a leader in close combat, they're free to go. You have to remove them from your warband. They have redeemed themselves and they can leave.
Yeah,
which is fun. So, and I do want to see rules expanded on that circumstance in the future. Like, okay, they leave, but where do they go? There you go. Stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Obviously, you can't, like, game 1 of the tournament, your Wretched takes a dude out and then disappears for the rest of the tournament. That would be very fun. So, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute, I have these guys. Does this mean I bring a bunch of these guys and I win game 1 and then I lose the rest of the tournament games? Because these guys have bombs strapped to their backs.
Oh, my armor. I just disabled this dude in the first game, but now I have 2 models.
Yeah, exactly. I blew up half of my list and I don't get them back ever again, you know? I love how these guys say that if they somehow live through the detonation of the bomb, they remain on the table, but they have no weapons other than like just banging people with their fists. And so you got to make it the rest of the game. So I want to play a game where one of these guys survives the explosion of his suicide bomb and then has to just kind of avoid combat for the rest of the time so he can get back to the lines and get another bomb strapped to him for the next run up.
God, I love those.
Well, it's also like there's two types of prisoners like that. They're either it's like the dude on the wheel. They can be volunteers, they can be volunteered or volunteered. So you know, they survive, but then do they want to go back and grab another bomb, or are they just they're done, they're one and done, they're out, they're off? Where do they go? What do they do? Somebody else that could be fun.
I feel like that's what really we've already told so many stories in the last week. Just goofing off painting these models about the horrible nature of life in the trenches, and you can just your brain can go there, and I feel like that kind of goes back to the question of you want to create a lopsided like quick play, you know, put a Shrine Anchorite up against 3 of your dudes and just play a 4 model lopsided thing to see what happens, because the stories I think you could come up with and the narrative that can come out of this game just blow me away compared to so many others. obviously Mordheim, Necromunda in the old days were had the same appeal to me. Frostgrave can have that kind of appeal because it can become more narrative. There are a lot of games out there that might be able to generate that for you. None have been so kind of immediately visceral like Trench Crusade has for me. Like every model I look at has a story because they feel like I would not only just pay for that grunt to be a grunt, but that grunt has a name. You know, in the rules it says that each character has a name, and I think it meant more like what it was called in the game. But for me, I was like, this is Todd. I want you to introduce you to Todd, and then this other guy, and this other guy, because I want to know and cross them off the sheet. I want to have a wall of fame where all my guys who have died by sacrificing or martyring themselves, have been on this list, and we'll carve it into wood, or I'll make a big bronze plaque. Yeah, it just gets you going. So
I don't know what the deal is with that Todd guy, but he keeps on surviving.
Todd keeps surviving. Yeah, he's going to definitely be one of the prisoners that, unfortunately, the guy that says he wants to get strapped to the wheel doesn't get to survive. It specifically states in the rules that even if at the end of the game he hasn't taken enough wounds and hasn't died, that he perishes at the end.
The guy on the wheel has wounds that are separate from the...
So the reason you do this is you stick him on the Catherine wheel, because now all the wounds that the shrine would take are dedicated to the guy on the wheel first.
So good.
So
he's literally a meat shield.
So it basically is really a meat shield. Yes.
That's awesome. In the truest sense that can be meant.
Yes. He's also strapped to the main weapon of the thing, because it's not a shield, it's beating things over the head with it first off. So I love the fact that the offhand weapon is the mace and the main weapon is the wheel.
The meat shield wheel.
I'm in. Count me in. Can I have 10 of these? Can I just play a game where I have 10 of these? I'm in.
So Paint Leaker here's got another question that's geared more towards you, Mike. And it's something that I was also kind of curious about. When earlier on you mentioned that you were working for Blizzard on Diablo 4, you felt like it wasn't dark enough, which is an interesting statement, which I can kind of appreciate because I really like the Diablo franchise, and I felt like that game also wasn't dark enough. Was there anything, this is a question from Paint Liquor, was there anything in the development of this game that you guys had to pull back from because it was too dark? Did you ever feel like you were like, we should probably hold the brakes on that a little bit?
No, because one of our goals,
one miniature which we couldn't have on Kickstarter.
to never do that.
Oh, just because of the
like
nature
designing
of the
this
model
stuff,
itself, the nature of the descriptive of the model couldn't ever be modeled and meet with public approval. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about?
Oh, it would meet with public approval. It would be. It's a model that exists. It is sculpted. It is good. We'll just have to bring it out a bit later when we are masters of our own destiny, shall we say? But sorry, Mike. Go on.
Okay. All right.
I like it.
Cool.
Understood. I love that attitude, by the way. I love that it's and again, I hate to quote historic things that I've seen on the internet, but I remember, and I'm not going to remember who of your team said it. Michael, it may have been you, it may have been Thomas. Somebody had said once that they didn't really ever care. I think my words, not theirs. If the game saw the light of day, it was the joy of working on this thing that really kept you going. And I tie that to this question you just asked, Jordan, because I feel like the answer would have, in my head, I said the answer is probably no, because this is a passion project that is now becoming something real.
Yep. I mean, there are some
that when Thomas and I first started the project, that's kind of what we talked about. Like, we didn't care if it made money, and we were both fine if it didn't make money. And I'm really glad we stuck to our guns, because so many companies try to make these big mass market things, and I don't know, that just doesn't really interest me that much. So I think it's better to kind of stick to our guns and make the stuff we're really excited about. And if it doesn't work out, oh well.
Well, I mean, I think you look at something like a good example of this is like Kingdom Death, right? Kingdom Death is what I would say is like pushes the limit of what most people would expect to be something that a lot of people would be really interested in buying, just because of how like weird, crazy the designs are. So, but that that game did incredibly well, right? So it goes to show that like there is
Mhm.
definitely like people are interested in all sorts of weird stuff, be it really
Yeah.
really dark games that have like crazy themes like what you guys have going on here, which is awesome, or like weird body horror stuff like
Well,
you know.
and Adam from Kingdom Death is of the same ilk, I think, and I don't mean that you guys are the same people, obviously, but that he stuck to his guns and made his vision a reality, come hell or high water. And I have nothing but respect for that. I thank you guys immensely for sticking to your guns, because I get to paint this stuff now, and I'm super happy. This is awesome. I think that there are too many. I think, to Mike's comment, that there are possibly too many people that are altering their vision for, you know, maybe the almighty dollar or the commercial aspect of a project, and forget that if you stick to, you know, you have to have that if I build it, they will come mentality at some point, I think, if it is a thing you love. So,
Well, and I think generally, in my experience, most things that I have consumed, be it, you know, media, games, whatever, that are a pretty true and accurate representation of the creator's vision in its entirety, without a lot of, you know, making um, shortcuts or you know, giving way on things. Like those are some of the most amazing like things that I've enjoyed, right? Like in my vision, the closest you can get to the full-fledged version of what you've got in your brain, the better off the product's going to end up being.
it turns out if you don't just go out and license an IP that you think people are excited about, and you actually make something on your own, that you can turn out really great stuff. Turns out.
Yeah,
Believe me.
I encourage people to do it because it's fun to you know, part of making this was like, oh, I'm gonna make a, you know, I'm gonna show how it could really be done. You know, part of it's a little bit of like motivation like that. So like if you ever see something like, oh, I could do better than that, you should try it because
Yeah,
it's like it's a great motivation.
100%.
We have a non-Trench Crusade related question for Jamie.
Uh-oh.
What are your cats' names? We're getting a lot of love for your
the
cats
fluffy
here in
one.
chat.
No, I'll see. I don't know if he'll come back, but he might. The fluffy one's called Jin, and the Sphinx is called Sky, but she's dead to the world right now, aren't you, child? No? Father? No time for father. No time for father. We shall see. Maybe they'll come back.
The cats wind up the star of the show every time. Pets. That's if you want to have a successful stream, have cute pets. All you got to do.
Oh, you have woken up. Are you? No? Oh God, no, that's just too groggy. We'll see. She might come along.
We got another cool
Put her
question
makeup on
here
first.
about named characters. So Iterator NC is asking, will there be named characters such as, for example, like a Knights Templar Grandmaster or something to that effect, that has some cool, interesting lore that we might be able to see in the future for Trench Crusade?
So we do actually have a special character coming, written by Andy Chambers, Mike, doing the special character. So we've got one of those, dramatics personae, as it were. I don't know what we're going. We need to be very cautious with special characters because there are certain games where they kind of introduce special characters in. They're very hard to balance and to point. You either make them underwhelming and nobody takes them, or you make them overwhelming and they become a staple. Finding that balance is very tricky. And going back to what we said before, this is a game about your story, not forcibly the story of other characters. Maybe there's somebody important that comes and joins you for a certain time or that sort of thing. But like a load of big name characters being like the mainstay of your force, I don't think it'll ever be a game like that, with the exceptions of narrative situations like with the aforementioned Corpse Front, where there's a story-based version or mode where where there are named leaders at the head of each of these war bands, but that's for narrative reasons. I don't think we'd ever go like the 40k Age of Sigmar kind of like special characters route. Much more like with Mordheim, like with Blood Bowl, that kind of thing. Much more dramatis personae, like what Corvus Belli Infinity do with their special characters as well. They're just different combinations sometimes of skills that everybody else has. Nothing too outstanding so that they break the game and become a must-have. You know, the focus should always be on your warband, the story you're trying to tell. You know, the dudes that you've painted up and converted, not the ones that we tell you should.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's like let the community come up with the named experiences through their battle reports, through telling their own story about, you know, Todd. You know, Todd survived again.
Todd the Eternal.
You know, Todd the Eternal.
Yeah, I love
With that
I love
said,
the
though, I
concept-
do want to make a.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I do want to make a special character artillery witch at some point with like a ridiculously large bomb. I think would be really fun.
Another one of the most amazing models and ideas in the history of models and ideas is the
I
artillery witch.
cannot wait to paint that model.
Oh yeah,
I'm very, very excited.
the
to paint that model.
now basically the unofficial mascot of the game.
Yep.
I mean, I've painted over the course of the last week here on stream. I painted 2 of my heretic troopers, and I am very, very much excited to continue on with the rest of the stuff that we've got here. So yeah, artillery witch being one of the chief among them that I'm really excited about.
She dies first.
She dies first.
She dies first.
We'll see how much of your stuff is going to die on the way to getting to that, making that happen. Jason.
So while we wait on that, I want to know what factions are your guys' favorite, Jamie and Mike? I know that's like when
I like
people
the
ask
Trench-
me what my favorite color of Proacryl is because they're all my baby, but I'm going to put you on the spot and make you choose.
Yeah,
Go on,
Trench
Mike.
Buggers for me.
Yep, I insulted it. I think I mentioned
Uh,
it before, but
I think they just look the cool. They look the coolest.
Which was that, Mike?
Trench Pilgrims for me.
Okay.
I think they're like the most flavorful of all of them, in my opinion.
I
So
knew
I
I
like them
liked
the
Mike.
best.
I knew it. At first sight, I knew we were kindred spirits. Pilgrims all the way. All of them speak to me, but yeah. And Iron Sultanate, Jamie. Yeah?
that's the one.
The Sultanate has amazing creatures, and their armor is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, God. I need you guys
It
to
stands
make
out amongst all the
I need you guys to make a faction I
one
don't
kind of
like.
aesthetic, as it were. with one.
Can you do that for me? Can you make a specific faction that this one is strictly so that Jason from Monument Hobbies has something he doesn't want to paint? That'll be a big sell point, I'm sure.
We do
Oh,
have another
maybe
question.
one day. Maybe one day.
We've got a question here from Forever After, talking about STL availability after the Kickstarter. Will the STLs be available on My Manufactory for sale soon after the Pledge Manager closes? Basically, I can't get as much as I want right now, but come January, I'd like to get more if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Pledge Manager closes on the 16th. Normally, we could get everybody's rewards out, the digital ones anyway, by the 20th. That's my hope anyway, that we have it for the Christmas holidays. And then obviously we kind of want to let the backers have a week or two's, time to play with their toys. I would also like a break. And yeah, I think early January, everything should be on My Mini Factory for sale, classic, normal.
Awesome. Very cool.
I love that you're gonna let the people that made the Kickstarter so exciting for you guys have some time to play with their toys. That's great.
Well, it's with the thing with digital is we can have a very fast turnaround, but it would be nice to give people, at least a little bit of headway in printing and painting.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We got Punisher here with his 50-month subscription. Says, please help. I'm being held here against my will. I don't like these guys that much.
Hey, if you can't stay willingly, sometimes we got to tie you to the wheel.
Punisher, I'm just saying, you've been here for 50 months.
I'm going to say 50 months of it not being your choice is a little deceptive, I think. That's giving us a lot more credit than we deserve. But thank you, Punisher.
Here we got a cool question from Cordell. What was the inspiration for the Artillery Witch?
The Artillery Witch, it started out with a name. She was originally called the Ordnance Witch, which makes more sense because she's carrying a bomb, but and that's not actually artillery, but artillery just kind of like rolled off the tongue a little bit better. And it really was just kind of like a name. Originally, like there were like these women who had like RPG 7s, and I was kind of doing a lot of sketches and trying to come up with like a cool look for them. And they kind of changed over time. There's an anime called Elfin Lied. There's like a really cool helmet. There's a really cool helmet in that, and originally she had the Elfin Lied helmet, and I just kind of kept working on it over like I don't know a couple months, and eventually she turned into the Artillery Witch that is like in the art that we see, and then I started coming up with the lore and everything for them, but I really just wanted that kind of, I don't know, it's like 17th century kind of Dutch-esque look to her attire and everything, and kind of reminiscent of that sort of like witch burning era, I suppose. And I want like her hat is sort of like based on those I don't know what you call them, like the medieval princess hat, but just like metal.
Yeah,
just metal. Nice.
Like literal metal. So that was kind of the idea.
where it almost has like the veiled look.
Yeah.
We got
But
Rancid Bomb up here.
having the bomb, like having the bomb is it's such an iconic shape, that classic like World War II bomb. I just thought they like went together really well in a fun, different way.
Jason and I were talking about that the other day, actually, how great it is to have that visual on some of these models, and how, like you said, it's iconic. It is everybody knows that that's a bomb. Like that silhouette just screams, I'm gonna blow up. So I think it's really cool to have that in the game and have it be in such a prominent space on like the Artillery Witch and that, right?
Are we not going to talk about the fact that she opens a portal to like the armory of hell, and that there are like some sort of slaves or lesser demons that are literally building bombs and dropping them through a floor on the hole, or a hole on the floor that then fall from the sky in the real world? Are we just going to leave that off the table here, people?
I love this.
How's that fair? That's not fair.
I am so, you know me, I'm Mr. Heretic over
That's
here.
That's not
so
fair.
I am the heretic.
How do you fight such power? How do you fight such power? I have a zealot inside of a walking tank, basically, who's a masochist with spikes stuck in him, but that's not like dropping bombs from,
Yep.
Like they don't even have to work hard at it. Normally, they'd have to fly planes.
Yep.
The planes could get shut. No, safety of their own home. Dump a bomb in a hole on the floor, a portal. The magic portal.
Hell's gonna poop out.
I want a magic portal. Can I have a magic portal? I love it. It just it takes me, the whole narrative just takes you to a place where I don't want to be, and I love that about the game, because it's like that is the definition of escapism for me. It gets my brain rolling. I'm the kind of guy that'll work when I'm not working, but I want that type of work to be like on insane ideas, and like, what if? Like, I'm the person that's making the dinner table really awkward because you take like, okay, but what if? cats really did have 9 lives. You know, like,
Yeah.
what if, you know?
Oh my gosh, I saw such a funny clip while browsing social media the other day of somebody watching a cat do stupid jump off the top of the stairs and making fun of the cat for how many lives it was losing every time it jumped over and missed and fell back onto the bottom story. Oh, that's so funny. Can we get an ordnance witch with a big gun?
They need a gun too now. I don't think the artillery witch needs a gun.
Mike's like,
They don't need guns.
I kind of like it.
like it.
Carl,
Stop it, chat.
the
Stop
Carl
it, chat.
Gustav railway cannon witch.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh my gosh,
I'm down.
please.
Levitate a cannon out of hell, and let's get some cannon stuff going.
Okay, so that sparks a question in me, right? It's talking about the big railway cannon. The artwork has some bigger than life environments in it. It's not just all the characters, it's the setting. And we see long artillery areas that have the feel of Titanic warfare.
Mhm.
There are cannons that are like sizes of skyscrapers. Is there a possibility for an enlarged scope of the game at some point?
Good question, Jason.
We've talked about it. I mean, it would be really cool to do because, like, I would love to up the scale. I would love to include like vehicles and things. But I think for right now, it's just we're really focused on like the skirmish stuff. But I think it's definitely a possibility that we could do in the future. And I think everyone on the team is really excited to do it because who doesn't want a weird church tank, you know, barreling down the battlefield? You know, I think that'd be sick.
I just want a hell tank.
I want an ornithopter that drops shrine anchorites so that I can have my own artillery.
Oh yeah, that would be sick.
Chat, what I'm hearing Mike say
is that
we need all of you right now to tell each of you, if you go convince 3 friends to get on this late pledge, right? And we do and then they tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends and what I heard is we get church tanks. That's what I heard. Right? Sound fair?
We also retire early at that point.
That Jamie doesn't get to sleep for the rest of his life, but other than that, life's good, right?
Yeah, apparently so.
I'm definitely super excited.
The ornithopter dropping anchorites is really cool too because I can see them having like bolts on their shoulder pads that they're hooked up to the like a Chinook sky crane kind of thing and flying over the battlefield, dropping them in. They land all cool and start laying waste. I think that'd be sick.
Chat, let's make it happen.
Chat, let's make it happen.
I think you underestimate the ability for Monument Hobbies to mobilize nerds here, people. We may have just ruined your life. Let's let them get through this first ridiculous, life-changing Kickstarter, and then we'll start talking about all the ways we can ruin their lives the next time. I love this lamb. I love that you can spend, I forget how many ducats it is, but I can have a character buy a lamb in my army.
Wait, you can buy a lamb?
Yeah,
What?
you can buy lambs for slaughter, and you can tie them to a character, and it allows the character benefits, right? So, yeah, it's great. They get to ignore, I think, the first blood token. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I might find myself modeling more lambs.
I'm really excited. So a friend of
cool.
mine backed all in on the Kickstarter, and he's got some stuff that he's gonna hopefully have put together. I'm traveling to go visit this Christmas holiday, and I might see if we can't get a game in over the holiday while I'm up there. That'd be very cool.
Awesome.
Nice.
I know he and his group of friends up in Seattle are super stoked about it. So
Nice.
So I know that like Tomas worked at GW for quite a while. Did anybody else on your team work for other companies in the industry? I know we've spoken, Mike, about your past.
I
James,
distributed
I think.
Sorry, go on, mate. The delay.
I was just going to say,
Go on, you
James, I
first.
think he's mostly just sculpted for himself. So he hasn't really worked for any companies. Go ahead, Jamie.
No, it's I distributed. I work for a company that did privately press France, basically.
Oh, that's right. I remember having that conversation. The
And gone.
Well, I was going to say, do you have a feel in the community of how many? Because really, where I'm going with this is, the amount of people that I see out there saying that, this is kind of what they hoped 40K would be from a general feel. Is that something that you guys have felt all along? Is that you were able to attract that group of gamers in that grim dark scenario? Is there a leverage point, so to speak, for you to keep it in this kind of next level of gruesomeness, almost to kind of reach out to a particular group of people, or is it all just your own personal likes out of these characters that we see?
I think it's really just looking at Warhammer, over the years, it's kind of gotten a bit more like mass market and stuff, and so I think we just kind of wanted to make what we wanted to make, but I think it really does appeal to a lot of people that feel the same way. Like a lot of like the really weird Warhammer stuff, and it's just kind of what is it, Age of Sigmar, incredible minis, but it's definitely a lot more like high fantasy now than the gritty Warhammer fantasy battles
There
stuff
was
that we're
a
used to. So
there was a
I
shirt
think it
that a
just
guy
appeals to a lot of
had
people.
made years ago that said "Keep Warhammer Weird," and it was right when I think Stormcast Eternals were coming out, and felt very Sigmarine. That name was being thrown around, and it really spoke to me back then because it did
Mhm.
feel like I've never been, even when I worked at Games Workshop, I've never really been a huge fan of 40K. I played a lot of Warhammer Fantasy, which was honestly, it was less grimdark, even though the artwork from the crew that was doing that, Adrian Smith and such, was very brutal artwork. It didn't have this. It didn't carry the same grim dark nature. I don't think it was presented like that. Yeah, I played Orcs and Goblins, and it was lobbing goblins that might blow your own army up. It was a lot of fun, right? It didn't have that. The
Yeah.
artwork was really cool and gritty, and it drew me in. But the game was fun, and the game was just about yeah, you could make cool horrible models, whereas 40K was this other thing. It was that there's no fun in 40K. There's no, maybe they tried to make the orcs have fun things that would happen, but it wasn't the same. That world was not the same. And so that grimdark nature was really what tied it to me. And reading the lore, I've read hundreds and hundreds of Black Library books, and it never made it to the tabletop. Right? It's like the models couldn't do what they were in the book. I don't know if it was, because it was all in metal at the time, dating myself, right? And then the early plastics were all just a squat marine with a bolter on the front, right? So I don't know. So I think that one of the things is the timing of this is so awesome and almost necessary to provide this grimdark in like the 3D printing realm, where I can have, I mean, I don't remember, we counted the pieces. This guy is like under 10 pieces. That's insane to me. The fact that this model is so brutal and has spikes that will draw blood, right? I'm not going to say that's happened, but they will. And and all of these models are like one piece and can get the look and feel without having to go through all of the necessary engineering. So when I hear like I think Jamie and I spoke about it briefly, like you start talking about plastics molding and the things you can get away now, I think give a freedom to that grim dark nature that can keep everything as brutal as you want it to be. And so I look forward to more and more ideas in this realm.
Solitaire, the question you asked was, will the STLs be available in the long term? I think we covered that a little bit earlier with one of the questions, saying that yes, the STLs will be available.
For sure.
Yeah, you don't have to. I think that one of the biggest things that kind of drew us into the fold and wanting to reach out to Jamie and the team was that the way they treated their Kickstarter, because we're not huge fans of Kickstarter around here, and only from a sense of it it being something that plays on that FOMO too much. And with the Trench Crusade, you guys haven't really done that. You haven't had like a, hey, if you back this, you get all these models nobody else can have. As a matter of fact, you went the absolute opposite direction. You said that, hey, we're going to cut off doing any more stuff on this.
Yeah.
I believe because number one, we don't think we could get it to you in a reasonable amount of time, and number two, they didn't want it to feel like something that just kept jacking up the stakes to try to gain more cash at that point. And I think that the hilarity of it is that as soon as you were out there with that honesty, I think you like doubled the size of the Kickstarter, because I think more and more people realize that, hey, this is real. This is something that will happen quickly, And,
well, the amazing thing for me is having watched and followed along with Kickstarters that I've been involved with various companies / Kickstarters that I've followed through other companies. It's amazing to have seen the success that you guys had as a consistent growth over the course of the Kickstarter timeline, right? In my experience, most of the time you see a really big peak at the very beginning and you see a really big peak at the end. And it felt like you guys were just having really, really amazing, consistent growth over the course of the entire Kickstarter, which was awesome. So it was really, really exciting for me to see from you guys.
It was pretty wild. As far as Kickstarters go, like the thing that really did it for me, where I was just like, right, don't know what I'm talking about anymore, is when we had to announce that we were going to do the big final stretch goal, and then that was it. We couldn't do any more because we'd run out of time and everything. And basically, we announced we were going to stop stretch goals. Which, when you do that in a board game, generally the curve, as it were, graph, it kind of trends down a little bit because people, they know what they're getting now. They've made a decision. It kind of peters out. Our curve went up after that, which
is crazy.
Makes no sense in the terms of a classic Kickstarter. But going back to FOMO and stuff, I've done a lot of these Kickstarters in the past, and I hate it like that. I really do. It irks me to no end. The fact that if you don't have hundreds of dollars just lying around when this thing goes live, then you're forcibly cutting yourself off from something. I just think that's it. And especially in a war game, like these people can't play with Trench Pilgrims. No, we were never going to do that. So it went naturally with the project and our own beliefs. So in that respect, it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have the most important question of the day.
Uh-oh.
It's for Mike. Mike, how many models have you painted?
Like in my life?
We could start there.
I mean, when I was a kid, I was really into painting minis, but I really haven't painted any recently, and I haven't painted any Trench Crusade miniatures yet. But I am planning on it.
Awesome.
When I was a kid, I really liked a game called Gorka Morka, so I painted a lot of orcs for that, and
heck yeah,
that was a really fun game.
Boy, yeah, that's dating ourselves by even knowing what Gorka Morka is, I think.
I am curious to see if my art skills will translate to painting minis again.
Well, we know a place you can come talk about your mini painting as you get involved.
We love to talk about that sort of stuff.
Just in case you covered there. I say that as I paint tremendous millions of little doots on these ropes because I want some texture here. I'm a little more insane than you probably want to be. But...
What's your next most? Hold on. Rephrase this question, Jason. What is the model that you are most looking forward to painting next from the Trench Pilgrim, aside from the one you're working on right now?
Me?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, geez. This is too hard because, like I said, I don't in the Pilgrims at least. There's not a single model I don't want to paint. Obviously, the things that bog me down are lots of foot soldiers. So when I have all of these guys, not bomb guy, but when I have a block of 9 or 10 of these, I love the model and it will get me painting. I'm not an assembly line painter, so for me, doing very similar things over and over and over again becomes the struggle. But doing it the way we've done it here on streaming, using it as a teaching resource to show you how you can do one part of the model, like we've done the metal on everybody with the cool rusted metal, and then I'll do like the cloth, and then I'll go and do the flesh, and then I'll do so staging it like that. I think helps. The only thing that doesn't do is speak to my need for completion. So as a painter, if you painted for long, you know what I'm talking about. There's a point where if you sit down for a session and you do a lot on 30 models or 10 models, and it doesn't feel like a lot at the end because they all have their boots painted, but the rest of it's in black primer.
Yep.
So that's it. But yeah, I think for me, I think the War Priest is probably one of my favorite designs out of this. I love the story. I love the fact that they have a shaped charge on a hammer, which is to me fundamentally insane.
Yeah, I don't want to be anywhere close to the business end.
I just love it. I love that you're gonna wound yourself because why wouldn't you? It just fits. So yeah, but all of them I think are great. The Castigator, the Communicant is probably what we'll start on next on stream because it has a lot more open flesh. So just as a teaching perspective, I love the textures that this game provides. I'm a very I don't want to say the word texture too much, but I love texture in my painting. Just even when I paint on a smooth surface, I like to make texture available. And this game speaks to me from that perspective because there is so much in textured materials going on. So all of the fabric, none of it's clean, smooth cloth. It's all tattered. It's all seen business. The skin, he's got scarification on him. When you look at the artwork, there's even deeper scarification and like crosses carved in it. So I'll probably do some of that. Obviously, the ability to do, blood effects and things that I don't normally get to do, or don't normally choose to do. They fit the story here and make it cooler. But I think all the materials that they've chosen in the art and then conveyed that in the sculpt make all the models equally as exciting for me to paint. Obviously, bigger is better for me, so I think the Communicant next, and then moving into the finishing off the small troops. But the small troops look so good when they're done. I had a ton of fun painting her, and this happened really quick, just simply because, again, the ability to mix with kind of an open flesh along with the grittiness of Trench Crusade just kind of spoke to me. It didn't seem like, and I'm probably not doing it justice by not putting enough mud on these, but that's because it's scale and with the rust on the armor that I'm doing, I feel like that's enough to get the story across. I'll do the rest with the basing when I get there. But yeah, I've loved it. Even when we did the test model with the other Stigmatic Nun, it just is every model's a great experience. I would tell you that if you're out there and you're thinking in terms of just the game and what it brings, even if you're not into tabletop war games, which I know a lot of people that watch us and who are involved at Monument Hobbies are into the art side of gaming more than the gaming side of gaming, and plenty of you are also gamers. All of these models I would put up as models that would just be a joy to have and to paint, regardless if you were just sticking them on a shelf or building a diorama or playing the game. So that's I'm a fanboy. I stand nothing to gain nothing from this. I just love the models. I think they're great. If you're insane and you like barefoot fanatics, screaming the name of God as they charge you with bayonets, then jump in. It's great.
So we got another couple questions here that I missed on my first pass. Brutal Burrito is asking what some of the inspirations behind the Black Grail models are. Ooh. Those guys are sweet.
It's Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies.
I look at a lot of, I look at a lot of when I'm doing this kind of stuff and designing. I just really enjoy body horror movies like The Fly and things like that. And so I have this like really disgusting reference board filled with like horrible medical photos. So that's kind of what mainly the inspiration for them was. And the other thing was I was watching some documentary about Versailles, I think, in like the 1700s, and they talked about this because it was like this palace, like this opulent palace, but it was also like the seat of government. And so someone might come to the palace and be like, oh, he might bring his pigs because like his neighbor, there was some argument about the pigs. And so you'd have this opulent palace. There's like pigs pooping on the floor. There's no bathrooms really in this hallway. So people are like going behind the curtains and like peeing and going to the bathroom in like this hallway. So the idea of this like opulent majesty mixed with filth was kind of like another inspiration for them, which is why they have like gold armor and stuff.
I love that. I love the fact that, yeah, when you think about it, like, you know, these dark age kind of where were the toilets? You know, there was no toilet paper, there was no hygiene. It was everybody trying to look important and prestigious, and then still having to lift their skirt like everybody else around behind the banner. You know,
Right.
that's great.
Deadbeat Arts here was saying, just want to say that having grown up in a Catholic family, I love that I know half the lore already. I know what Catherine's wheel is, the biblically accurate angle, the lamb, etc. I understand the meaning of all of that. Really taps into the same things that made me study art history and archaeology. So thank you for making something that fits like a Lego into my brain.
Oh, wow. That's some good praise.
That is some good praise.
Well, I think Mike's always said that, you know, it's one of these themes that whether you engage with it or not, it's ingrained in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I find like the theology and all that stuff. I personally find all that stuff super interesting. So like I like to see it when it pops up in games and when it pops up in media and things like that. Books that I'm reading, I find all of that really, really interesting. So it's really cool to have a game that I think one has amazing models and also is just themed around all of those things that I find really interesting, which is super cool. So it's like perfectly suited for my interests.
What's weird, right? Because I'm a big fan of things like The Exorcist and that supernatural theology crossing of the lines, that mythos, if you will, in the Christian mythos. And so things like the seventh sign, anything that brings like, you know, the harbingers of the apocalypse and, you know, the four horsemen and Gabriel blowing the horn, you know, all of these things, archangels. There's something I don't know if it's a latent genetic thing in humans, you know, again, it's like it speaks to me in a way that I'm like, I don't know why. I wasn't raised Catholic, you know, I didn't go through all of this. It's just something that's always, as fiction, I've really been drawn to. There's a lot of like urban what would you call it, urban dark fiction that like will include demons and devils with, you know, I'm a big fan of the Repairman Jack series. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. But the Repairman Jack series is like it's like a whole chronicle of basically the devil coming back to try to take over Earth in a modern apocalyptic tale that includes a guy who's just a fixer. He's just like almost like a bounty hunter fixer, and he gets wrapped up in this supernatural thing. And I love the idea. I think that's what drew me to the Trench Pilgrims, more so than maybe just the aesthetic, is the fact that they are just normal humans. Other than the communicant, they're kind of weird. They're out there, but you know, the rest of them are just like, you know, they are that the pilgrimage during the Crusades, where it was just your bakers and your butchers that were going to take part in this thing because they believed so vehemently about everything that was going on, and they're thrown into this world where there's all this supernatural craziness.
Mo, if I start playing this game, my mom will burn my D&D stuff again.
Yeah, I was going to say this does harken back to the '80s when everybody said that you were a Satanist if you played Dungeons and Dragons. So
that's so good.
There's a lot of that.
That's so good.
I mean, if we provoke the second satanic panic, I won't be displeased. That's definitely
awesome.
going on the CV, you know, whilst they're burning me at the stake. But...
Yeah. That's so funny.
Mm.
We got a question from Ugg here. Are there any plans to expand the universe with novels?
Oh yes.
Um,
Oh
we'd
yeah.
love to do it.
Mm.
I don't know
Well,
if
we've
it's
already
gonna
got some
happen,
short
but we'd
stories
love to.
coming on the Kickstarter. Sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I said we've got short stories coming from the Kickstarter, which are pushing the definition of short right now. We'll see what happens. But yeah, no, there is a lot of we would like to see that for sure. Absolutely.
Cool. I mean, I for one would definitely be excited to read like a full on novel about the backstory. Some of this stuff would be super cool.
I will be happy to voice over your audio novels. I'll do it for free just so I can read them first. Yeah, the lore again just kind of pulls you in and makes you want more. I think and I it's interesting because I don't know a lot of the people that come through our channel and stuff really love the idea of it and the concept of it. I think it speaks to a broader world, and I don't know why. I was reading something the other day about why historic gaming, like bolt action, let's say, Napoleonics, that had such a widespread. That's where all of this came from, right? The idea of putting toy soldiers on the battlefield, and yet then we moved into a more fantastical world. But that in that fantastical world, there's a unique view from a lot of people that think that if it's more rooted in the human aspect, something more relatable. So, like, if you had a World War II game, it might not do great. Bolt action does okay, but it's not as huge as it probably should be for such a great rule set.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to add robots and demons in there, so you had a more escapist thing, and it wasn't just the story I already know the ending of, right? And then all of a sudden it becomes something more. And I think some of the appeal here is that you don't have to care about World War I and trench warfare or any of that. You don't have to care about the Crusades, but there's a human feel to it that immediately puts you into a place where you can kind of reach that uncanny valley, but do it in a way that isn't aliens and space Jedi and lightsabers and things like that, right? Where they're injecting humanity into a far-flung issue.
Yep.
This feels like, hey, they're still trying to fight for Earth, and of course it brings in the Christianity and the Muslim faith and the levels of hell and all of that. So there's some recognizability there for people that know it. But I like the concept. In my head, that's where I'm going to keep it, is that I feel like people will always be drawn towards something that has some more recognition built into it than Wookiees and things like that. I'm not going to say that, we aren't going to make Trench Crusade bigger than Star Wars someday, but,
we do have a really quick question related to the late pledge and some issues with like payment through PayPal or something like that. Is there a resource that you guys have for people who are having trouble with any of that sort of stuff?
There is a guide. There is a guide for the pledge manager up on the Kickstarter. It's the second to last update. It's literally titled "How to Use the Pledge Manager." For PayPal, that is mentioned on there. Basically, there is an issue with our PayPal at the moment. It should be resolved by tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest. So if you can't pay through PayPal, that is normal. Give it 24 hours, come back, it should work.
Awesome. There you go, Tony O'Nice. That should cover you for now. Dig through here and see if I've missed any other questions. Actually, I do have a question for you, Jamie. Have you painted up any of the models for Trench Crusade yet?
No, sadly I haven't. Basically, because I'm so caught up in everything else that's Trench Crusade.
Yeah.
That there is such a thing as too much Trench Crusade. And I have hit that limit. I can tell you it exists. After a certain point, I want to disconnect and not have to think about Trench Crusade for a few hours.
Sure.
Not being asleep,
Yep.
So yeah, bearing in mind that when we were working on Trench Crusade, I was like, I don't know, playing Blasphemous or something on my downtime. So even when I wasn't working on Trench Crusade, I was still thinking about Trench Crusade. So no, I just didn't.
I was going to say, you picked the wrong game to get away from it, right?
Yep.
I had proper trench rot. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, brain rot. Sorry, trench rot, brain rot, trench brain rot. There we go. But yes, I am looking forward to getting into them over the holidays, like so many other people. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think it hit this all hit at a perfect time, right? Is so many people now have access to printers and have the ability to print things through STLs that like this all finished up and wrapped up right as people were getting into their holidays for at the end of the year, so they all just get to take some time off and do some hobbying and some gaming and all that. So kudos to you guys for some great planning.
The
It kind of all lined up nicely, to be honest. We're cutting it a bit fine with Christmas, but you can't dance faster than music, as they say. So
Yeah,
right. So talking about going and playing Blasphemous and getting away, and Mike has made some reference to the type of body horror and the idea board that he has. What other nerd things do you guys find yourself getting into outside of whether it's a getaway from your standard day? Are there other things you do, books you read, movies you like to see? What inspires you and what do you run away from? Because I'll preface this with a lot of times around here we talk about that kind of creative block that can come even in a creative space like wargaming and painting miniatures. And a lot of people will say, what do you do to get over it? And so it's kind of like, where do you run without running so far away?
Right now I'm reading the Redwall books, those little books about like mice and stuff, like fighting each other.
Oh,
Those are
really?
pretty great. Yeah. And I'm watching a lot of PBS documentaries right now.
Sorry.
You said you're watching a bunch of
And I read
PBS
a lot of
documentaries?
Yeah. Yeah, anything by Ken Burns I'll watch. That guy's great.
Fair. Yeah, for myself, I was playing Blasphemous, I think, in the run up to the Kickstarter. But honestly, yeah, I do play video games. Playing Diablo 4 at the moment, which is obviously pretty grim. Obviously, another one of Mike's many works. And reading a comic series. I'm not sure if it would be a comic for you guys over there in America, but it's called Bird King. Art by Grom, very cool artist. Super colorful, but once again, very grim world. Once again, I'm on a theme here. But yeah, really cool comic series. And just finished Arcane season 2 in terms of TV. Very good. Watching Dan, which is anime, also very good.
Very
Not
cool.
much in the way of films recently, I'm not gonna lie. I have The Pig, which I do need to watch, which I've heard very good things about. Which is on the list, but I haven't got around to it yet. There we go. And yeah, music wise, what's new Linkin Park album, which was surprisingly good. Wasn't expecting it to be that mature, but it was cool. Yeah, already a fair amount going on there.
No, that's a lot. That's good.
But no, I don't like to do just miniatures. Try to keep it diverse.
That's good. Yeah, I've been watching Arcane.
Oh,
You
very
mentioned
good.
that, and I've really been enjoying it. I hold the first season as probably one of the best animation dramas ever made. I think that they knocked it out of the park, and I'm not not unhappy with the second season. I think it's doing really well.
How far are you?
You know what? I told you I thought I was like 2 or 3 episodes in. I had only watched 1.
Oh, okay.
Now I've watched 2.
Okay.
You
Okay,
know,
so you're like one more in than you were before.
I'm pacing it. I'm not a good TV watcher. It's hard for me to sit down and do a lot at once. Sometimes Jen and I will binge a couple of episodes or 3 episodes of a thing that we find that we really like. We're also trying to fit in watching the Tulsa King thing, which is still good. So I'm a fan of that. And I don't really like TV much anyway. For me, it's always been audiobooks, but I reached a real big break in my audiobooks where none of the books I have like 6 books going at once because all of them have fallen on their faces and aren't really finding. And I'm not ready to blame the books because they're all good writers and great series. I'm blaming myself for not being in the right mind state, for listening. So
Totally.
I have to remember sometimes I get real critical of things that I'm involved in when it's me. I'm the common denominator. I'm the problem. I'm the bad guy, so to speak, and I don't think right now is the time that I should be listening or reading books for some reason or another. I don't know why.
I mean, it all kind of ebbs and flows, right? Like I go through big excitement periods where I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks, and then I go through big periods where I'm doing a bunch of painting at home, and then I go through big periods where I'm doing nothing but playing video games. So, there's a time for all things, and it ebbs and flows.
100%.
Like myself, I'm going to be spending an eternity locked into playing video games this weekend.
Uh-oh, PoE.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh, nice.
I think Mike's locked in on that one too, right?
Yeah. As
I
long
am
as
also-
the computer didn't get destroyed by it.
I also have some early keys
Yeah, I know.
that I gotta
Oh, nice.
do that. Yeah, these guys pulled me back into it a while back to PoE 1, and now with PoE 2, I'm gonna do it. Jeez, I guess so. I guess so. I'll do it.
I mean, I grew up playing a ton of like Diablo 2 and that sort of thing. So I really love that genre of game, and I think I also am like a super big nerd when it comes to these sort of games. So like the more amount of the more complexity and the more options that you can give me, the better. Which is exactly what Path of Exile gives you as a game. And add it on top of that an economy and a trading system that's pretty robust, and you're just like, this is perfect, right? So I am definitely incredibly excited for it. And I mean, all the things that they've shown have been definitely positive improvements from what I can see, or are different enough to be exciting in their own right.
I
was
grinds.
pleasantly surprised that I could make my own build.
Yeah.
Well, that's the idea, right? I think they've done a good job of kind of like eliminating a lot of the barrier of entry for people to experiment and try combos and actually have a successful result. Whereas, the current iteration of the game, it's very difficult to play without having, either 2,400 hours of experience or are also following a guide, right? Which is a bit of a bummer.
It's funny how sometimes games that are doing really well just need a reset so that they can get new people in it.
Yeah.
Because we all suffer from that. If you play anything that other people are playing, you come in new and you can't get caught up. I play so many games where I'm like, I find out about them 3 years late because I don't really pay attention. And I'm like, this game's great. And everybody's like, yeah, great. And you're the noob and you can't get any time to have anybody pay attention to it. So, I think that again, pulling it all full circle, I think we see that with games like Trench Crusade. I think now is a perfect time to get a game that doesn't have even though it has some longevity, there's people that have been goofing around and playing with Trench Crusade for years with the rule set being free, which, by the way, gang, if you're wondering about Trench Crusade, I implore that you go join the Facebook group, because all the PDFs for all the rules, there's some lore PDFs up there that are lore primers. There's the alpha and beta rules when they do testing and stuff that's going on right now. You can just get these rules. You can get the PDF, has all the info for all the units. You can proxy units. You can use units from other games. It has a very agnostic feel to it, and you can be playing Trench Crusade almost immediately. But it doesn't have a community that's going to be rejecting you out the gates. Like if you're coming into the hobby, which there's a lot of people coming into the hobby nowadays from other sources. Space Marine 2 is bringing a ton of people into the hobby, right? Games Workshop has this amazing magnetism because of their reach into things like video games and other aspects with the Bandai folks and the toy, what is it? I want to say Toy Fair. It's not Toy Fair, but the people that make the damn big miniatures of all the like dreadnoughts now and stuff that you can buy at the store. The collectibles. Toy-Joy, right?
Yeah.
And so you can get these things. So there's people finding out about our world of miniature wargaming from avenues we haven't even expected for in the recent past. and they're coming in, but there is sort of that Path of Exile feel to it, that PoE1 feel to it, right? You come in and you're like, what do I need to get involved in? And you're in a veteran gaming store where everybody's already got 18 armies and knows the meta, and it's hard to even get a learning game sometimes, not because of anybody's fault, not because there's bad players, but because there's such an uphill grind of 10 editions that you're trying to overcome, and the history of all of that's going on. So it's a nice jump on point if you have been wondering and maybe there's a game for you out there and you like some of this stuff. I think it's a great point for you to get into a game that's finding its legs and has really done well and got a lot of people interested. So you're not going to have a hard time finding people that want to play.
And I don't mean this in a negative way. I think the game is simple enough that new players to miniature hobby, the miniature gaming world, will have an easy time understanding what's going on. But there's a lot of depth and complexity to what you can do with the rule set, which is where, your experience of having played the game a bunch benefits you in the long run. Yeah. So, and I really like to see rule sets that are designed like that.
That's a good way to take us out because we're almost out of time. But Jamie and Mike, if you guys can give us a little bit of a vision into what led the game to the point it's at. Did it go through phases of way more complexity? Did it get toned down? Did it have to get tuned up? How does it feel now versus at the beginning?
Tomas had I think he had sort of like an idea of the kind of game he wanted to make from the very beginning that he'd probably been thinking about for years. And so the base core rules really haven't changed from like the initial his initial pass. And now I didn't see all the work he did like, either in his head or the stuff he didn't show us, but like it was pretty much just like the core rules have been there from, the first playtest set, and we've just kind of added more stuff. Now things have changed based on feedback, like if there was like a broken combo or something like that, but it really hasn't changed all that much in terms of like the base, I don't know what you call it, but like the core of the game.
Oh, that's awesome. That's usually the toughest part, right? Is that it has a vision initially on what it wants to be, and getting there is such a long, hard road. But I guess with Tomas at the helm and having done this before, not his first rodeo, that it must be nice too. So that's great. Chat, it is your last chance. If you have anything you'd like to ask Mike and Jamie from Trench Crusades about, let us know.
Dig in here. I think there's a couple questions here. So Big Boss Man's asking, has Mike drawn any Hasaw vampires yet? Not sure what that is. And if so, when can we see them?
I've sketched a couple, but they're not strictly for like the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. They were just sort of generic vampire hussars. So I wouldn't attach any sort of connotations to like a specific culture. But yeah, I have sketched those up. We would love to draw design a faction like that. So.
And then this is actually a painting question. Spitfire's asking, will PA spray primer work on a wood plinth?
Definitely. Of course, anytime you use a spray primer or any kind of acrylic primer or any wet liquid paint on wood, it is a very porous surface. It's going to soak it up, so you're going to use more material. So even though the first coat may look like it gives you opacity, once it dries, you'll find wood grain and a lighter color to it, assuming that the wood is light that you're painting over the base of. It's always really good if you take the plinth, if it's wood, sand it down really nice, and then seal it with like a polyurethane sealer. Let that dry for a couple of days. That then changes the porosity of the wood, but still gives it the same tooth, so you can paint over it. It becomes more of a miniature at that point, as opposed to a sponge. And so if you can do that and seal the wood, then it's going to be much better, because one of the things that like an acetone paint can do when you use the spray paints on wood is as it soaks in, it can actually spread the grain depending on the wood type that it is and make the wood rougher. And of course, once you've painted it, you don't want to have to sand it. So sanding it, prepping it, sealing it with a polyurethane wood sealer first, and then painting over the top of that is the recommended way to do it. It's more work, right? But it's going to give you a better result. Assuming you're doing a plinth for a display model, that's the way to go.
Let's see. Colonel says, "Oh, Jamie Parsons, you are now officially my favorite member of the Trench Crusade team. Dan to Dan is such a great anime.
He's winning people over with his anime choices.
I'm gonna
That's
be honest.
it.
It's actually kind of amazing.
Anime is cool. I've got them in the bag.
It is. That show is wild and also like really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Cannibalistic Zombie. What are Mike and Jamie's favorite Pro colors?
Oh, you're gonna put them on the spot about our paints. We did not pay him to ask this question, so.
Zombie.
I'm gonna have to think of the ignorance here because we can't really get pro acryl very easily in Europe, where I'm in France. So
Yeah.
I don't have much experience with the range. I'm not gonna lie. I have some friends who do have it and love it, but I couldn't tell you a favorite color. I'm afraid. Sorry.
We're gonna break through his trade barriers and get them some paint soon.
Whiskey's asking, have the devs read Between Two Fires?
Yes, I have. I loved it.
No, I have not.
Oh, the John Blanche question, because I know John was part of early playtesting with some of, I think, what the rules became Trench Crusade. But Mike may be able to chime in. Jamie may be able to chime in more on that.
Yeah. Is it here? Mom Two Face is asking, is it okay to ask if Jan Blanche?
Jan Blanche.
Jan Blanche.
John Blanche.
If John Blanche is doing anything going forward on TC. Some chatter he is unwell. Not. Well, hopefully not.
He has designed. He's done a bunch of drawings for us. I would love for him to do more, but I know he's working on a lot of his own projects too. So I don't know if he'll do any more for us, but I hope he does, because he's like the emperor of grimdark.
Yeah, 100%. Don't ask Zambi's question. That's not allowed. Zambi's another streamer here on Twitch, who's a good friend and Monumental, is asking if you lick your brushes when you paint.
Zambi's.
Obviously, there's no other way to do it.
Question.
I'm
Rude.
sure that hasn't cost me any like lasting damages over time, but we shall see.
That's what they say now.
Yeah, exactly. I said I was bad.
And yes, on that, thank you so much, chat. Mike, Jamie, again, thank you so much. I know, Jamie, it's late in France. I really appreciate you hanging out with us and giving us the time. I know that the group here loves it. We've had a lot of eyes on it. I hope this mobilizes more people to get involved with the game. Again, it's something that we've just fallen in love with here. The aesthetic, the stories that you can make. It takes us into complete nerddom. So thank you guys for creating this and bringing it out to the public, because that's the real thing. Sharing your vision with us as the buying populace is always amazing, and I'm very grateful that the community gave back everything, and hopefully more than you expected that you put into it. So keep it going. We're along for the ride. We'd love to hear back from you. So we'll stay in touch, and appreciate you being here.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us on.
And with that, chat, we
for
are
having
out.
us.
Remember that we stream 5 days a week here, Monday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Stick around. We're going to find somebody to raid to keep this party going. Lots of hearts and hugs in chat for Jamie and Mike for hanging out with us. Go hang out with all the Trench Crusade stuff. We will put up a bunch of links in our Discord for where you can get all the information for Trench Crusade, including the late backer kit if you want to go and support them that way, as well as the rules and all that. So make sure that you join our Discord. Can you give them the Discord link in chat there, Jordan?
Yeah, it's real slow.
Oh, it's being super slow. There you go.
Super duper slow.
All the links will show up in chat. But again, thanks so much for hanging out with us, guys. And with that, we will say good night. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.